All right, welcome to my channel. Basically, I just woke up today and all I did was walk around my block. I spoke to some trees, to some plants. I spoke to some mosquitoes, some insects that were flying around, some bees, and I came back home and I studied a bunch of things like the fourth dimension. I studied the alphabet. I studied a bunch of things, and I don't necessarily know what I can talk about right now. Like so many things I can talk about. Right now, I'm thinking I want to say that I really want to just shout out ideas and just hope that they make sense in your mind. But I feel like everybody is forgetting about God and forgetting that we're God's chosen people, and we need to what's it called go back to being good and stop all this ratchet indecent behavior, like unless like it's really what it comes down to, because nowadays it's so much easier to disrespect and to rise up in anger and just shout at someone, harass someone, and that's not the place I want for my kids. Just a little bit about me. I'm a German, Italic, Spanish, Mexican, American, and I lived my whole life in America, so I'm pretty much very Americanized when it comes to my education and my culture. Right now, I may not look like it, but let me see if I am white. It's just that I tan, so now I'm a little browner. I'm white because the dad of my dad and his dad and every dad from that point on to the beginning of my family bloodline, it was either German or some type of mixture between a German immigrant and a Spanish native. So that basically means I'm a light skinned person, like I could argue that I have a righteous bloodline because of where my family last name originates from, but I don't want to get into it. Even if I did have like a righteous bloodline, it's not like I'm gonna inherit anything, but if I do, actually, I might. I believe that you inherit blessings from your life. Like, I believe that whatever angels were in charge of leading your family, I mean, your ancestors' family to safety and things like that, now leads you. That's what I believe, like, and yeah, man, it's awesome. I wish I was talking to someone so I can like reply to questions and whatnot, but I'm just recording myself on my laptop. So let's see how far I can go just on my own train of thought. Let me see. I do believe that, you know, I am white. However, my family's Mexican. So I'm not, the household of my family is me because I live alone. This is my whole house right here. That's my bed. That's my whole house. And in front of me is my kitchen. That's literally, I live alone. So I'm the household, I'm the head of the household where I'm from. So every moral that goes into my household comes from me. But being raised, I was not raised under white culture or white law. The most the most legislative part about my upbringing, my rising up as a child, was basically Spanish culture and Spanish tradition, and most likely Spanish Mexican traditions. So even though there might be traces of German, even though my DNA to its core is to its deepest core is German, my understanding in my life right now is not German by any means necessary. It might not even be pure Spanish. It's just Mexican American. So that's really who I am. I'm not a German. I'm not even a Spaniard or even a huge Latin dominant presence. I'm mainly Mexican American. My point of view is from a Mexican American point of view, unless somehow I'm more German than I think. Like I don't know any Germans personally, and I don't know what Germans think like. But who knows? Maybe I'm more similar to a German than I believe. Who knows? Now, what I think is interesting is that I believe evolution. Okay, I believe history, science, even mathematics, everything that is modernized is basically gonna be white. Colonization comes from white people. Everything in the world is a type of colonization from white people. White people are literally spreading around the world. And in the future, I imagine the next 30 years to be even more white. And I don't know who you think you are. Sorry, that sounded very wrong. I don't know who you might be, but white could mean Italian, German, British, Irish, my bad, Scottish, Swedish, even Spanish. Like in America, there's a lot of like English white and there's a lot of Spanish white. But in America, English white does not consider Spanish white to be white. I mean, that depends on who you ask, really. So forget what I said. Someone who really knows the terminology of what white means, they'll say, yeah, he's white. He's a Spaniard. He's a Spaniard, Spanish descent. Yeah, that's what Hispanic means. But not every Hispanic is white because not every man, not every Hispanic comes from a white man. Some Hispanics come from a white female, but they come from a brown father. Mexican native, and then there's Spanish native. Like my father and the father before his father and every father since the beginning of my family bloodline has been Spanish. So I'm more white than I guess if my father was Mexican, right? Yeah. So it's kind of difficult. You know, um, I want to argue that as a Hispanic, we need to come together as a Hispanic community and really reinvent what it means to be Hispanic because I personally want to be part of the hierarchy that comes with social status in the world. And right now, I don't know if Hispanics are high in that status. What am I going to do to change that? Well, you know what? I'm going to go to school and I'm going to become an accountant. Once I graduate and I get my master's or my bachelor's, I'm going to try to become a government accountant. And once I'm already in government, I can try to get myself into a higher rank in government. And my plans are to be influential to my community somehow, one way or another. And I do it out of the goodness of my heart. I'm a Christian. This is what I believe. I'm so Christian. Like I I know I say I'm a Christian and I smoke. That's very like how what would you want to conflicting? That's it's conflicting by definition. I guess you can say, but not necessarily because Christian means that you believe in Christ, right? I believe in Christ. I believe that Christ walked this earth and he did miracles, and that he was a, what do you say, like, he was a representation of what godly power could be to us humans. You know, it's so like, I honestly believe that I believe that there's a difference between white people and black people. And that obvious difference is that I think chemically our skin is different, right? Black people have more melanin in their skin while white people have less of it, right? That's what I believe to be the case. But I believe there to be a deeper, more profound, spiritual, maybe religious aspect of why there's a difference in color. I know it has to go way back between the Neanderthals and the Homo sapiens. They say Homo sapiens came from Africa while Neanderthals were already in Northern Europe. So it's, they consider, I guess, modern day humans to be a mixture between Homo sapiens and Neanderthals, right? Not modern day humans, my bad. Just modern day humans are considered to be Homo sapien descent because everybody became Homo sapiens. I guess Homo sapiens really decided to travel the world, and by traveling the world, they somehow integrated into every other race. But white people, they come from Neanderthals. That's what I believe to be the case according to science and my studies. And I believe that before Jesus Christ, probably before Abraham, and probably before Cain and Abel, there was knowledge of light and darkness. It's, if you're a Christian, you believe miracles happen. You believe Jesus did miracles. And I think miracles have to do with the light and curses having to do with the darkness. It says in the Bible that when God came to earth, earth was already here and it was covered in darkness. So darkness, I guess the earth was cursed. I guess you could say, like, was there life here before God? I don't know. I guess to the Bible, according to the Bible, there was not. But who's to say, that there weren't crawlers, insects or bugs on earth, like, who's to say that? Because the Bible doesn't say that God created crawling things, does it? I think it does say that, actually. I'm not sure. But or bacteria and like organisms and microscopic life, arguably you could say that it's been here before God, it's arguable. It's an arguable concept. Well, the thing that's interesting is that it says that God brought the light. That's something that baffles me because I'm like, whoa, okay, so that means God was the light. Or maybe God was an entity that summons light. So what was God really? If you think about science, like, was God a big bang that happened? Was the Big Bang God? Because the Big Bang explains how something exploded and light covered the universe, right? Was that God? Or was God, like, it kind of goes a little deeper than that. I believe that light is sentient. I believe life can spawn out of the light because I've seen it. I don't know if I was hallucinating. I don't know what I was going through, but I've seen it, so I believe it. And according to science, if you look up the short history of the world, a book recommended by Albert Einstein, it'll tell you how life at the earliest stages on Earth spawned from a tree, and the tree's attempts to retrieve water from a farther source, right? Like, it's far away. So they say that there was a tree or a vine. It was more like a vine slash tree, ancient prehistoric life, right? And this tree started losing its access to water, and now this tree did not have roots. So what this tree did was it spawned life, and they gave this life a name. I forgot the name, but this life, I imagined it to be like a spider or like a bug, that just came out of the tree and went, sucked some water up, and I guess it came back and peed on it, or spit it out or something, like that's what I imagine happened. And if life can, according to science, if life can spawn from a tree, how can life not spawn from the light? Giving an explanation to what God is, like God is the light, or God is from the light. It's very interesting. I guess you have to go through the experiences that I have to understand what I'm talking about. Because you think about it, if you're someone oblivious to what I've seen, you're like the light. How can life come from the light? And then you look at the light, and I'm looking at it right now, and it just looks like light, But maybe some people that are destined to see greater things, like they'll see angels in the light, they'll see things, like because the light is essence, the light moves, the light is not still, it's not stationary, the life is always active and moving. Why is it moving? Why is it active? Is it alive? We don't know. Like what if light is a bunch of miniature microscopic stars, like, or sun? What if light is a miniature sun just moving around its universe, which happens to be our atmosphere, like, or our air? You don't know. There's so many things that we don't know. So many things that are possible that we just don't know. I'm gonna post this video on YouTube. I hope you comment any theory that you got for me that I can research, because I am a true existentialist. Like I believe, I want to know why I exist. I want to know why things exist. I want to know everything. Like I want to know everything. And I encourage you to let my hunger and my strive, my willingness to know and learn, flourish, and comment theories that you want me to research and look up. Like it'd be cool. What else can I talk about? I believe God was the name that we give to the entity that came to earth and brought the light. That's what we call God. And I think that that entity actually sits on a throne in a spiritual realm that is heaven. And I think that all life that acts upon light comes or is somehow influenced by that realm. And it's crazy because I believe all life acts according to a prophesized outcome from a heavenly deity, like because everything, it must have already happened in heaven, for it to already happen here. Because how, like, how do you explain heaven? Heaven was here before us, like heaven was here before humans. Like, how do you explain that? There were already entities, godlike creatures, angels that move and talk and socialize and fly and do magic. They do miracles. They emit the light. They legislatively organize themselves and give themselves judicial uh, positions and authorities. And it's all a monarchy if you think about it, because heaven is a kingdom. So I think, are white people destined by God in some way to lead the world because white people are white and they somehow resemble the light, and they invented real world kingdoms and monarchies and high status of societies that you might think are only achievable by those in heaven? It makes you think about it, right? Like, like what's going on? From I grew up, I was raised I grew up in I was born in 1995. So I grew up in the late 90s, 2000s, early 2000s. And I remember a time when people wanted to be like kings. Being a king, being respected, or being a high class of society was what you wanted to be. And I remember when all this drug influence happened and everybody just wanted to be a drug dealer and do drugs. And I remember the process, I lived through it. And I'm actually smoking right now, probably because of it. And I'm not, I can't say exactly why I'm smoking. I just know I like it right now. I like feeling different. Will I change one day? Probably. When I don't smoke, I'm like whatever about it. But I always know that I feel better when I smoke. Thank God there's safe, smokable weed now in dispensaries at a affordable price. I'm not sketched out by buying it off the street no more. As a Hispanic man, I understand that I come from Spain. And Spain is famous for the Spanish language, which is derived from the Latin language. And by being Spanish, we're basically Italic. And that means that we're a part of the Renaissance. We're a part of the Enlightenment. We're a part of a lot of profound knowledge and wisdom and teachings that come in the form of a blessing from God. Who showed Spanish people who showed the Italians how to make the Latin alphabet, who showed the Spanish people how to make Spanish words. All these people were blessed by gods. In previous times, check this out, the Bible is a clear example of authors who wrote books in the past times, only people that were blessed by gods and angels. So who write, like you got to think about the Spanish were one of the earliest peoples to translate the Bible due to the Muslim population that entered Spain. And I forgot what era, like sometime. So being Spanish means that I think the Spanish are probably heavily involved in the introduction to the word Lord, Heavenly Father, and things related to kingship because they translated the Bible back in the earliest days. And in those days, the Germanic monarchy that migrated from Germany into Spain was dominant in their influence and in their educational, what would you want to call it, teachings, right? So, like it just so happens that once it was translated into English, that it was incorporated by all these other European nations, right? But at the same time that the Spanish was translating the Bible, so were the Italians due to heavy Italic influence in Spain, which also gave access to the French, being that they're so close to Italy and Spain that they were also learning about the Bible. I'm also Mexican, so it's kind of weird when I say that I believe that the future of my family should be white. Is because my dad's side of the family has green eyes, and some people on my dad's side they have blonde hair, and my mom's side, well, my grandpa's like he's native Mexican, so he's dark brown. My uncles are dark brown. I have cousins who are dark brown, and other uncles and relatives that are dark brown. Not everybody's white in my family. So, like, I want my kids to have green eyes and preferably to be blonde because of my family on my dad's side. It really makes me question, like, who am I gonna have kids with? Like, am I looking to have kids with a Spanish speaking, with a predominantly Spanish culture, blonde girl with green eyes, or am I trying to have kids with a blonde girl with blue eyes that's English, and from that Anglo-Saxon family line, like, because if I do go with the English, that means that my family is gonna turn into an English family. However, it will have a Spanish last name. However, I myself don't have my dad with me, so my dad doesn't teach me about my Spanish culture. So my culture is mostly English because I speak English basically to everybody I meet, and I hardly only speak Spanish with my mom. So it's weird, like, it really depends on my wife how my kids are gonna be raised and where my family's gonna go to. It depends a lot on my wife. So I'm gonna be watching out to see who I end up with. I want to study my I want to study the Spanish blondes and the English blondes and see which one's more righteousness. Let's see who's which of the two are more righteous in knowledge and looks. Because I want my family, I want my lineage to be beautiful and porcelain. Like, that's how I want 'em. What else can I talk about? You know, the fact that I believe that white people come from angels only means that I, as a believer in that theory, I have to act in a righteous way according to God's law. Because if I'm not a reflection of what is godly and what is of the light, how am I going to be progressive in my own theory? So that's also why I want my kids to have green eyes and be blonde, because I want them to signify, resemble something that is godly, like, when it comes to, like, the world, blonde people with green eyes, blue eyes are not that common, so I want to be I want to be a stat, a statistical value under the category that is rarity and scarcity, like, and looks. That's what I want. My dad has green eyes, and I was supposed to have green eyes, but I didn't. But now I have the gene within me for my kid to come out blessed with vision. Like, who knows what green eyed people see? Who knows what blue eyed people see? Who knows? I don't know. All I know is what brown eyed people see. So most people would argue that we all just see the same thing, but that's not the case. As science progresses, we find out that there's more differences within people. Like, there's more to people than we thought. Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna go to school in about a few weeks, and I'm gonna study business. I'm gonna try to be an accountant, and I'm gonna try to get ready for soccer. That starts in September. I'm gonna try out for the soccer team, and I hope to get scouted into a good school so I can get money and study. But there's not a lot of soccer schools for business. At least I don't think there are. and I'm picky too. I want to be by the beach. So let's say there's like a D1 soccer team that's not by the beach, and there's like a D5 soccer team that's by the beach. I'm gonna go to the beach and just improve that D5 team because I'm so confident in my skill. I'm basically right now I'm probably D5 player, yeah, because I'm out of shape and I haven't played in like some years. But me at my peak physique, and let's say I have all the conformities of having been playing for like months, being comfortable with all my moves, all my passes, all my shooting. I'm easily a D2, D1, probably high D3 player for sure when it comes to soccer. With a only slight height disadvantage. Yeah, I'm almost done with the blunt. I don't know what else I can get into. You know, being italic is such a prideful thing to just be proud of. Like that means we're part of the Renaissance. You know, it was not the English, it was not the Irish, it was not the Russians, it wasn't even the Germans. It was, however, some of the Spanish, most of the Spanish Germans, yeah, just not regular Germans. Yeah, I mean, I would love to say that I'm so proud of being Mexican. It's just that I don't know what being Mexican means. Like, I'm raised by the American educational system, not the Mexican. So, history as I know it comes from an American perspective. Like I just don't know about Mexico. I just know Mexico were invaded by the Spanish because of Christopher Columbus. I learned that in school, and that's pretty much it. I know Mexicans had a huge understanding they had a huge understanding of astrology and just like spiritual, like shaman, like I guess subcategories. I wouldn't really know what to call them, but besides that, I don't really know much. Maybe there's this whole magical spiritual side about me that I haven't unlocked yet, and maybe I'm on that path. But where'd I even start? Right? That's crazy. All right, so Mexicans were here. Mexicans come from some part of Asia, right? So Mexicans are some type of Asian descent, not necessarily Asian because at that time they were already Homo sapiens, so it's more Homo sapien than Asian. So it's some type of Asian mixed with African. So I know Homo sapiens come from Africa, Neanderthals come from Northern Europe, and there's another type of Homo subspecies that comes from Asia. So whatever Mexicans were, they were a mixture of that subspecies with Homo sapiens, and maybe some Neanderthals came here too because it turns out that apparently the Vikings came to Canada a long time ago, apparently through like Iceland or something like that. So who knows, Maybe there's been white people here in America this whole time, but my people come from Mexico, so that's more like Aztec, Inca, more Inca. So for sure, there's no Vikings coming from the South Pole. It's possible that Africans from South Africa came but there's no evidence of Africans using boats ever. So that's not scientifically, I guess, historically viable. So Mexicans are a type of ancient Asian mixed with ancient African mixed with, I guess, ancient North Africa, Middle Eastern. So some type of Middle Eastern, so some type of like Eastern European and Asian, most likely a type of Asian, so maybe I have more in common with Asians than I think, so I need to learn about Asian culture too. I don't know much about Asians. I don't know what Asians believe in. I don't know much about it. I need to figure it out. I know Asians believe in dragons. Uh, I know there was an enlightenment process in Asia too, but that was already when Mexicans were here. So, what were Asians like when they crossed over to Alaska? They were most likely around the Bronze Age, probably even before the Bronze Age. Yeah, it was way before the Bronze Age. They probably weren't even speaking by then, so it doesn't even matter, I guess. Asians became what they are because of Genghis Khan and because of the Shin dynasty and things like that. So modern day Asians have nothing to do with modern day Mexicans, or I guess you can say South Americans or whatever, or Latinos, right? Not Latinos, actually. You can say what would you call them? Native American. Yeah. So maybe it's more African than I think. Maybe we have Mexicans are more have more in common with ancient Africans, like ancient Homo sapiens. Thinking about all these ideas of darkness and light, maybe Mexicans have more influence with darkness than they do the light, because native Mexicans are dark skinned, they're not white skinned. And I think that when Spanish came, which were my ancestors, they were black, dark skinned Mexicans, native Mexicans, and then there were us, the white Spanish people. So maybe now I have a mixture of black energy and white energy that revolves around me, and that's kind of dangerous because white and black does not get along. It's interesting. Now you have to get educated within the yin yang and this and that. There's a bunch of like theories that you have to think about, and it's crazy. Like you should. I encourage everybody to just learn about their origins. So that you can at least. A lot of people, they don't know where they're coming from. Like they pick up personalities and points of views off the internet. Like some people would argue things that they see on Facebook. Like that's not. Come on, like be serious. You're not credible. You're not for real. You're not a real person. You're fake. Like what's it called? You need to educate yourself on where you come from. Like and then you'll see what matters to you. That's what I'm finding out. So I guess that's it for right now. I already finished my blunt. Maybe I'll get another blunt some other day, and we'll talk about what I've learned and what I'm going through. Well, I'll see. I encourage you. You comment things that you want to talk about and things that you like that I said, things that you don't like that I said. Things that I could change about my aspect. Like just let me know. You don't necessarily gotta tell me anything like the things I mentioned or anything like that. Just feel free to say anything you want to say. And I appreciate you. God bless everybody, and let's all progress to a safer, more understanding, and righteous world.